Welcome back to Yield Today with Dallin Candland. I'm here with Dr. Frank Buck. He's written a couple of organization books. He was a band director, helped out with helping principals be more organized. He's an expert in this stuff, so I'm really excited to talk with him and have him share what he has learned and stuff. So thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely. Well, Dallin, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, band director, principal, central office administrator. But the thing that brings me here today to do something like this is that really, for as long as I can remember, I've been interested in systems that help people accomplish what they wanted to accomplish, or what was keeping them from accomplishing the things that they wanted to accomplish. So as you look back over my career, if I had any success as a band director or a principal, you could really trace it back to being organized and being able to keep a lot of balls in the air and know where they all are and not let any of them drop, and to make it all look easy. Because really, the things that we do on a daily basis, it's not that the things are hard. What's hard is keeping up with them all and giving the right thing the right amount of attention at the right time, and having a system that keeps it all together. I mean, that's everything. If you had followed me around as a first-year band director, you'd have seen, there was the memo pad that I always had in my pocket. And so I'm writing things down immediately so that I didn't have to keep up with anything. And so now it's the phone. And so we go from a 50-cent memo pad to $1,000 phone, but the principle is the same. As soon as something lands on your radar, you throw it in the system. Then you look at what you have in your system, you put it in the right order, and then you get busy doing your stuff.
Yeah, this is already resonating, man. So for me, I juggle. That's what I do. Like, I have this podcast, I write poetry. And for me, they all go into the next thing. So like, I wrote this poem, then I do this podcast episode, then I do another poem, then I do this other thing, I write this other thing, and they all come together. And it's always going. It's like, it's not, for me, what's worked is not, I'm just juggling the podcast over and over again. No, I'm doing so many other things. I was on a run today and I had poetry ideas on the run, and I'll have podcast ideas doing something else. And so, I love what you said about having some kind of way to keep track of all this stuff. I think of like a farmer with chickens. You have the time where the farmer lets the chickens out, run, go do your thing, chickens, go eat the food, whatever. And then it's like, now get back in the coop, chickens, get back in the coop. And they have the routine figured out. And so for me, with my ADHD, like that's the good life, man, is when you have some clear expectations, but at the same time you have rewards and stuff built in.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And you mentioned being out on your run, and I've even got like on my watch, I've got a little if this then that applet. So I can text a certain number on my watch, and then whatever I say is the text message goes into remember the milk as a task. So I can be out with even without my phone. But for me, the ability to not have to keep up with anything, that I can immediately throw it in the system, is the thing that just makes life so much easier.
Yeah, we might have to jump on some kind of other call, just because I was listening to like you were talking about remember the milk, and I have dove into, I have an Evernote account. I've used them for a couple of years and it's been super helpful. I've tried Todoist, I've tried some of these other ones, and there does need to be this experimentation piece. I was reading from The Magic of Thinking Big a little bit, and it's like how we all have our own lab to work in, and we can spend as much time in that as we want. And what we put in our lab is going to influence what we're able to get out. And so you've put some super dope integrations and stuff in your lab, Frank. So it makes it really a lot more simple to make really wonderful things happen.
And it's got to be easy. You read about little tips like, oh, okay, if you want to exercise every day, lay out your exercise clothes. That you're eliminating that little bit of friction of, where are my clothes, getting them, putting them on. That if you can eliminate the friction and make things easy. And in my live workshops, I talk all the time about, when you put something on your list, word it so that it is very easy to do. You look at your list and you see 2 items: solve world hunger, buy shoestrings. Well, one of them is a whole lot more important than the other, but one of them is going to get done today because you know what shoestrings look like, you know where to get them, roughly how much they cost, how to install them. Solve world hunger is just some big project that it's almost, well, how do you even get started? Well, I'll do the easy stuff first, and a lot of time management experts say, oh, when you look at your list, you're going to be attracted to the easy things. You'll want to do the easy things. No, you must do the important things. And I'm going, look, let's take the important things and let's break them down and word them so that they are easy, so that when we look at the list and go, oh, I want to do the easy things, that it's all easy. And we're making strides on those important things because we're taking little steps along the way.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of that quote that how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So it kind of makes me think of how it's probably not beneficial for you if you have all these buckets that you show tons of love for yourself. Like, this is how I show love for myself. And then there's this one part of your life, maybe it's your relationship with your significant other or whatever, that it's like, I am the worst. I am not good enough, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's not going to end well. There's like there's that poem that's like, every day there's this wolf fighting against this other wolf. The granddad is talking to his son.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's 2 wolves
which
fighting.
Wolf do you, yeah. And which wolf do you feed? Which wolf wins? Well, it's the wolf that you feed. Yeah. So, if you can get those important things, get them on the list, and everything I have to do is in one place. It's in, remember my milk, which everybody out there could have today and have for free. When you download the companion app that's on your phone, it all syncs back and forth together. All of your repeating tests, all the stuff that we have to do every month at the same time, every year. And it's not that it's hard to do, it's hard to keep up with. Throw it on the list. When does it repeat? And Dallin, I don't know about where you live, but I know where I live. I'm in Alabama, and your driver's license, the chapter renew every 4 years. I don't get a card in the mail reminding me to do that. That's on me. That's why half of our state is driving around with a driver's license that's been expired, because nobody. I have a task in Remember the Milk that says renew driver's license. It has a due date about a month before when my driver's license is going to renew. And the repeating pattern is repeat every 4 years. I'm done for the rest of my life unless I move to another state that has another way to do things.
Yeah. So quick little example. I love that so much because you created a template. You made it so much easier for yourself. I mean, pretty recently I found out on Zoom, because right now we're using Zoom, and I was like, oh, there's this thing. It's like, do you want to make this a template? It's like, yes, make it a template, please. I don't want to do this again. It's like, we don't have to make this so difficult. You look at like basketball plays. It's like, we did that really cool thing once. What if we wrote that down so we could augment it, so we could change it? And if we want to change it, then let's change it. But let's get a basic skeleton on board on the map, and then we can play around with it from there. Kind of go deeper into templates and how you use those with your work.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you followed me around, you would see me doing a lot of thinking on the front end. I'm not we'll cross that bridge when we get to it kind of guy. But because when it comes time to cross the bridge, there's no telling what else is going to be happening at that bridge, including the bridge being out. So I'm going, let me think through all of the steps on this and get it into the system, get it into Remember the Milk, so that as these dates come, I'm just checking off things and saying to my past self, thank you very much for having thought this thing through all the way to the end. so that I'm not having to continually think about, what do I need to be doing on this? What do I need to be doing on this? What's about to fall through the cracks? No. And like this, the interview that we're doing right now, when we first connected with each other, that became a note in Evernote, and all of the information and all of the things that were running through my mind about, I want to be sure I mentioned this. I want to be sure I mentioned that. Pull up that note, add it to the note. It's all in one place. When this interview publishes, I'll take the link, I'll add it to that note. It'll be like everything about this event is in one place, and I'll have it 5 years from now.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go with this, man. There's just so many different things. It's just like,
Yeah.
where in the world, man? It's just amazing. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, how you were able to change from being the band director to eventually doing all these other stuff. And what were some of those things that you noticed, and how did you take action on those things instead of taking notes? Because we all can take notes. Taking notes is easy.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, to go back to that first year as a band director, and, there's so many little bitty things that you would be surprised at how many little bitty tasks are involved with something as simple as putting on a junior high band concert. Okay, we got to get the program. We got to put the program together. Where we're going to print the programs. How long is that going to take? Oh, who's going to take up money at the door? Oh, how are we going to get the timpani from the band room over to the venue where we're having the concert? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But once you have the list, you've got the list for all the other concerts. You're not having to reinvent this. So I was realizing pretty early on about the power of repeating tasks, and about the power of, think about, when do you want to see this again, and set it up so that you do. There's an old business tool called the tickler file. I learned it from my dad when I was 8 years old. He was a lawyer in a one-man shop. So he had these 31 folders, just labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 31. So if it's the 15th day of the month, he pulls out folder number 15, and there's every piece of paper he's going to need to work with. And so, as papers come in his way, and it's like, oh, I'm going to need this when I meet with this person on the 20th. Well, he puts it in folder number 20 and forgets about it. I need to file this motion at the courthouse 2 days from now, when I'm going to be at the courthouse anyway. Well, don't lay it on the desk and hope you'll remember to walk out the door with it then. No, put it in the tickler file right now while you're thinking about it, so that you earn the right to forget about it. And so from day one, I'm doing that with the little memo pad in my pocket and my tickler file. And now I'm doing, 40 years later, the exact same thing. Now, first of all, I still have the tickler file for all things paper, but for all that other stuff, the email, you name it, that's digital. When do I want to see this again? Make it a task in Remember the Milk with that date, and I earn the right to forget about it. It's a different tool. It's exactly the same principle.
Dang. Yeah. Again, I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beauty here.
Yeah. And then, to carry the journey a little further. So I'm a successful junior high band director, and and I'm having breakfast with sort of a mentor who had been a successful junior high band director, and then was a very successful middle school principal. And he said, Frank, running a school is just like running your band program. It's just on a larger scale. He says, you have to budget. I have to budget. You have your band boosters. I have my PTA. You have to recruit students. I have to recruit the best teachers. It's the same kind of thing. And so I did go on to become a principal. And kind of the turning point was the doctorate. And my doctoral dissertation was a study of the time management practices of Alabama principals. And so I've got to read everything that's out there on time management. And one thing I'm finding is there's a whole bunch written aimed at the business person very little written specifically about education. So here you got principals who are having to read business books and apply it to education. I thought, let me go the other way. So I put together a workshop aimed at educators with the things that I'm learning that could actually then be applied to anybody. And so, about the time I earned the doctorate, I got a principalship. I started doing workshops on a larger scale and writing about this stuff. And then the president of Ion Education, a publisher, so how do you go about getting a book published? What? It's like, well, I just checked my email one morning, and the president of a publishing company who was familiar with my work, who had seen it here, and here, said, have you ever thought about writing a book? And if you have, I want to work with you. And so that became the first edition of Get Organized, Time Management for School Leaders, that now is a second edition, where, it's like, where's all this stuff written down? How can somebody else learn to do it? Well, there's the how-to, and it's as nuts and bolts as it gets. And then to continue with my own shameless self, promotion, a couple of years ago when the pandemic hit, the publisher came back to me and said, Frank, everything's digital now. It's all digital. Everybody's at home. Can you go back and write another book that just deals with the digital side of the house? So I said, okay, well, we had Get Organized. Let's say Get Organized digitally. And whereas this one, I tried to not talk about specific programs and specific companies. Like, you won't see the word Google anywhere in this book. You won't see the word Apple, because who knows what'll happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I said, this one, we're going to roll the dice. We're going to talk about exactly what I use right now. And if 6 months down the road, something goes belly up, okay, we'll do another edition, and we'll talk about the tools that I'm using right now, most of which are laying around for free, that you can have. It'll make your life easier.
It's beautiful. It's I was smiling pretty broadly at one point, and that was because I was thinking about, if you could walk through my apartment right now. I just moved in here 2 weeks ago, and in my main room, there's papers everywhere.
Yeah.
And then you go in my bedroom and there's more papers everywhere. And it's there's some structure for sure, but it could use some help and more systematizing for sure.
Yeah.
So let's go into your dad more. Like, what else did you learn from him? Like, you learned about the tickler file. What else did you learn from him?
Gosh. There were so many things, because he was also a very well-organized person, and one for having little tricks where he wouldn't have to rely on his memory. Like I remember back, toothpaste, it would be in this tube, but the tube would be in a little box, So when he took that last tube of toothpaste out from under the cabinet, and it's up, this is the last one, he would take the box and he would do stuff like paperclip the box to the steering wheel of the car. Because he didn't want to have to remember get toothpaste at the grocery store. So he would do these little things to make the physical thing the reminder. And you and I probably do things like this, to sit so-and-so by the front door, where you're going to have to trip over it to get out the door. Well, if you can't remember to take your briefcase with you, well, you sit it by the door, and you're pretty well gonna, that. And having a place for things. If you're always looking for your keys, it's probably because you just sit your keys down anywhere. No, have a place for things, and then you know exactly where to go and look for it. But so often people don't think about these things because they think life has just got to be hard, that this is just the way it is. I get a lot of emails. So the reason that I didn't respond to your email from a week ago is, because I get so many emails. Well, it's like, do you go out to the front of your house, check your mail, and then stick all the mail back in your mailbox and then complain that you can't find the bill because of all the mail that's in the mailbox. No, it's cleaned out every day. You take it, you make decisions about what needs to be done with it, and then the mailbox for your house is empty every day. It's the same thing with the digital one. The things in your email are either it's regarding a place you have to be, a thing you have to do, a thing somebody else has to do, but you want to make sure they don't let it fall through the cracks. It's good reference information to have later. It's a good recipe for chocolate chip cookies, or it's documentation. Mr. Smith emailed me. He was mad. I called him. He's now okay with everything, but I sure want to hang on to this email just in case. And having a place for each and every one of those. And you're probably wondering, is there a book where it tells you exactly what to do? Yeah, actually, there are 2 of them that tell you exactly what to do. Plus, for free on my website, you just Google, you just search for email when you're at my website, frankbuck.org. And, here's a blog post that I wrote that tells you exactly what to do. So you can also have it for free. Just, we go into a little more depth with more examples and use case scenarios in the book. So, yeah, every day my email's empty. Every day, empty. Life doesn't have to be as hard as we sometimes make it.
It's crazy. First of all, give a quick shout out to your dad. What in the world? That is so genius. Being like, you know what? I don't want to have to think about this. So I'm just going to, attach the toothpaste holder or whatever to the steering wheel. That's amazing, man. That really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other thing is just how, with all this stuff, it is going to change, but there's things that we can build that do not have to change, that they can grow with us. And
Yeah.
I remember at college, there's a guy who told me about the power of putting emails into, like, I'm trying to remember the exact term, but you put them into categories or labels, I think is what it's called. And so it's now whenever I get an email from this person, it goes in the exact same folder. I have a folder called Creator Fuel, and anything that's related to creating or podcasting and stuff, it goes there, and I don't see it in my inbox. There's a couple newsletters I think are okay for me to see right in my inbox, but most of them I just have it away so I can look at it later. And that has definitely made my inbox a lot cleaner, but it still could use a lot of work, especially when I get all those emails from LinkedIn or Indeed or all these other different things. And I'm like, man, someday this will not be the case. And it's a beautiful thing. So if you could go a little bit more into how you structure your email. And I'm not saying everybody needs to have inbox zero, but what you do to work on it.
Oh, but it is so nice to have it. Well, I use Gmail, and a lot of people don't know this, but you can have Gmail check all your accounts. So if it's like, well, I have a home and I have this email address and I have this old AOL address from years ago. No, you can set things up in Gmail where it will check everything and bring it to you. And I use what's called priority inbox. The default on Gmail is these different tabs that say important or priority and social and this and that. So that means there are 4 or 5 places I'd have to check to make sure I got it all. There's another one that you can choose from that same little menu called priority inbox. So it puts the things at the very top is a section called important and unread. And then important. If I've opened it, but I haven't done anything with it, it'd be and then starred, and then everything else. And Gmail, using its smartness, it looks at things like, is this person in my contacts? Is this a person whose email I have replied to before, to determine what's important and what's not? And if it messes up and it puts something up there in the important category that's really not, it's got a little yellow deal beside it. I can just click the yellow marker, it turns clear, and now something from that person would go down into the everything else. And likewise, if there's something that winds up in everything else that's important, I click the little marker beside it, it fills in yellow, and it's now always going to be in the important. So I can start at the top, and everything that's important is going to be in that section, and then all that LinkedIn stuff so is down at the bottom. So that helps me to real quickly get through the things that are going to need my attention before everything else needs my attention. But I'm going to get through it all every day and put it where it needs to be, delete a lot of stuff, archive a lot of stuff, email things that need to be done. I talked about Remember the Milk. Remember the Milk gives me a special email address. So if I get an email and it's like, ooh, I need to call Bob about this, I can just hit forward it to that little email address, change the subject line to something like call Bob, forward. It's now sitting on Remember the Milk, a task call Bob. And in the notes section of that task is the entire body of that email. So now I don't need the email anymore. I can archive it or delete it. So I'm doing that kind of stuff all the time, so that there's really two places. There's only two. I tell people I only do two things a day. I check the tickler file. There's all things paper. And I look at my task list on Remember the Milk, and there's everything that I have to do. Two places.
Yeah, I'm just giving you the thumbs up, man, because you definitely have been doing some amazing work. And so how much time do you spend on your email every day then? I'm curious.
30 minutes, maybe. And now there may be an email in there that takes 2 hours. Maybe it's we're accepting applications for this particular conference. Here's the link to apply. Here's what we're looking for. I'm going, boy, this is going to take a lot of time. Forward it over to Remember the Milk and keep going. So that particular email, start to finish, 2 hours. I don't have time to spend 2 hours on it right now. So it's like, let's send it where it needs to go and keep going, so that really getting that inbox back to zero is like one activity. Just sit down, do it, get it done, and then leave it alone for a while. Don't let it be like instant messaging. Don't let it be ping pong. Oh, an email came in. Let me go look at that email real quick. It may be important. If it was that important and it had to be done like right now, if it has to be done right now and somebody's emailing you, they're using the wrong tool anyway, and they need to find that out earlier rather than later. Well, I sent you that email. Well, look, I check it 3 times a day. Whatever's good for you. I check it about 3 times a day. If it's something you need in the next 24 hours, email's a great way to do it. If you need something done right now, there's this thing that Alexander Graham Bell gave us that still works really well. And you probably have one on your desk and one in your pocket. Use it. Use the tools for the appropriate thing. And email's not for right now, because that's the whole problem. People are checking email all the time and they never get out of email. And here's another neat thing. So often somebody sends you an email. Oh, how do you do da, 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 da? And so you reply to them. And basically what you've taught them is anytime they email, you're going to email them right back 5 minutes later. If you didn't email them right back, they might actually have to Google that question and find an answer on their own. But people do what's easy. And if the easiest thing to do is interrupt you all day long, they will do it. And it's your fault for letting it happen. Nobody's going to look out for your time if you don't. If they find the easiest thing to do is do a little research on their own, then that's what they're going to start doing. People do the easiest thing. So make the right thing the easiest thing.
Man, yeah, and I've seen that for sure too. Like, you're teaching people how to like interact with you. If they know that they can reach out to you at any hour of the day in all these different ways, then they definitely will. And it is so important to communicate your values, your ideas, your ambitions, so that you don't, hold people back or you let them hold you back. You know, it's a dance for sure, because we don't know what's going on, and sometimes the music changes, and we have to overall remember who we are and what we want to do. And having a task system can help things be a lot more clear for us, so we are able to stay on track, stay in our lane, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, is there any last tips you'd give? And we'll give this one to the college students right now. What advice you'd give to college students? I'm not in college anymore, but I know some people in college still listen. And then how do we get in contact with you?
Okay, so for college students, I mean, the tickler file. Yeah, I know we're digital, we're digital, we're digital. Okay, but what are you going to do with the tickets that are hard copy tickets to that concert that's 3 weeks from now, or that hard copy invitation that you have, or the birthday cards that you want to send? You know, we're still dealing with paper. Get yourself the tickler file that's handling all things paper. Get yourself, remember the milk to handle all the things that you have to do, all the repeating tasks. Get yourself a place for your notes, your digital notes. I use Evernote, and even the free version is pretty powerful. And with the innovations later, things like real-time editing, where like you and your buddy are taking the same class. Well, instead of having two notebooks, one of you create a notebook, share the other one, a shared notebook, and the two of you can be sitting in class side by side, both in the same note, taking notes simultaneously. Each of you is seeing what the other one is writing. Make your life easier. So, Evernote, it's been around a while. People like new shiny things. And yeah, when Evernote came out, it was the new shiny object. Everybody flocked to it. It's only gotten better, over the years. But so many people, well, what's new? What's new? Well, you tell me what's old and has stood the test of time. So yeah, go get yourself a free Evernote account.
That's good. And then Google Docs does that too. I mean, if Evernote doesn't float your boat, hey man, there's a lot of other boats
Yeah,
out there. You don't have to sink. You don't need an in or two.
It exactly, and you can have both. I think Google Drive is a good place to have documents. Although you can have a document over here in Google Drive, and in Evernote, you've actually got a little button to insert that link to Google Drive right there in an Evernote note. But then also things like being able to take a PDF that your professor's given you and just drag that sucker right into the body of an Evernote note. You can't do that in Google Drive. Or it's a PowerPoint presentation, or you can just drag all of those right into an Evernote note, and they open right in there. The changes save. It's phenomenal in the things that it does. And the web clipper, how many times you're on a web page and it's like, I don't just want a link to this, I want this whole article. The kind of thing that back in the day you'd take a pair of scissors, clipped it out of the magazine, hole punched it, put it in a notebook. Well, same principle, different tools. Click the little Evernote web clipper. The entire thing, the entire article is now in Evernote, and it's editable even. The text is editable so that you can mark it up any way that you want to. And that's even on the free version. So it's too good not to do.
It's beautiful. Definitely give it a try. And I think the group note thing was absolute genius. Somebody's going to use that. It might not be super applicable in every class, but definitely with some of those maybe more difficult theory classes, you could both share the same thing. And that's a good way to get any kind of grasp of a subject, is to write it in your own words. So you just dropped tons of wisdom here. Thank you so much for coming on, Frank. It was a pleasure, and just keep up the good work, man.
Thanks so much for having me.
You got it.